It's a pretty exciting day when I get to debut the new Wyze Cam Pan V2 for you. This is a brand new smart home camera from Wyze with a ton of new features, and I'm excited to get it opened up, show you what it's all about, show you the best use cases for this kind of a camera versus some of the others in the lineup or some of the others on the market, and give you my full breakdown. As I get right into the box, I don't want to waste any time here. We're going to get right into it. You get a quick start guide, and the packaging is actually quite compact when you think about this being almost the entire camera here. It's feeling pretty large. Wow. This has surprised me at the physical size of this camera. Now, I'm thinking that the sensor should be basically the same as the Wyze Cam V3. The speaker is huge on the back of this thing. So what's going on here is this is a full siren now, or they call it a mini siren from Wyze. So that's going to be very interesting to listen to. I'm not too sure what this is on the front, but when I figure that out, I'll let you know and I'll put it on the screen. On the bottom, we have mounting hardware, so this is really good to see. This means you can put it on all kinds of different mounts. This is usually the setup button. They ask you to press that when you plug it in. And this is a micro SD card holder. And this is a really important component of Wyze's system overall right now. So they have Wyze Cam Plus, which you can get to store longer online videos. Otherwise, you just get 12-second recordings. So that becomes really important because then you can store recordings locally onto that micro SD card and you'd have that full recording there. So the base rotates and you're noticing that is where the power cable actually goes in. Really different design here from Wyze. I like where this is, but you have to think about that for orientation when you're plugging it in. As we look at the actual sensor, there's a couple of really interesting features here. So number one, this is a pan and tilt camera. So this is, I believe it's 93 degrees distance that it can pan or tilt up and down on its own. And then of course it's able to spin at 360 degrees. I did just hit a catch. There is a catch at the end. So it's going to have to turn back around in order to get or follow people around your room. So if someone goes right around the camera, well, it's going to have to turn back around and get to them. You can, of course, manually control both the pan and tilt, and there's a motor speed inside of the application that affects how fast it is. This is at full speed. You can see how fast it went. Here's at about half speed. You can see that it takes about double the time, and here's at the speed level 1, so the slowest speed you can put it on, and of course here's a comparison for you at that full speed. Again, it is very fast. This doesn't affect how it tracks people though. However, it does affect the sound slightly coming out of the motor. So here's a listen. Inside of the box, we have two different components. So this is a 6-foot USB cable. Now it's not USB-C, it's just your standard USB, and we have the power adapter here from Wyze that of course that goes into, and this is going to go into the camera. Let me show you some of the differences between the Wyze Cam Pan V2 and the Wyze Cam V3 here. Now you can see that in a lot of cases in terms of the sensor, in terms of the actual physical hardware here, you can see that these are very, very similar. Let's have a look at some actual footage from the Wyze Cam Pan. Now, as it moves in the space, this is me manually moving it, you're gonna notice sometimes that it takes a second to kind of resolve the picture when it's stopped moving. Now, I have been fairly impressed though with its tracking capability of me, and I'll detail a little more in the settings, but it will basically follow you really, really well throughout your space. However, you will hear this kind of sound. Still, again, I've been very impressed with the tracking, although there are a couple of issues. And here's the first issue. If you are sitting with a backlight behind you, the camera loses. My hand is fully open here, but you can't see it. When you're up close, it can lose faces a little bit. You can see that it took a few seconds to adjust to where I was, and then it did find me. When you use the Starlight feature, the tracking seems to work just fine, but you can't see my face in any of these scenes. And this is across the lineup. The only time you can see someone's face is when they actually get a light on it when you're using that Starlight feature. What I do find much more effective is still to use night vision. So while it's nice to have that full color vision at night, I actually find the night vision much better. The specifications say it can go quite far, but in order to make out people's faces, you're still going to need them to be fairly close. Still, I can see a lot of detail on those homes behind me and my vehicle behind me as well. So very impressed. And in terms of a comparison, this and the Wyze Cam V3 look exactly the same, and it looks just as good as many other brands of cameras that you've seen us review recently on the channel. The Wyze Cam V3 has to make up a little bit for its inability to pan or tilt, so they give you that base which does rotate, but obviously you're going to set this and forget this. This one's going to rotate. They've also done a little more protecting of components, because this Wyze Cam Pan V2, this is not an outdoor rated device at all. There's no IP rating. This has to be in your home, whereas this is indoor outdoor. And that actually causes a pretty big difference in the back as well, or where we put in the power. So you can see with the Wyze Cam V3 here, this is a physically attached cable. Now, what they do is they give us this kind of a housing around the USB port, and that ensures or keeps it pretty waterproof. So we really don't have the same thing at all here with the Wyze Cam V2. Obviously, the speaker is going to be quite different. Now, there was a big improvement on the Wyze Cam V3 versus the V2, but I think we're gonna hear a whole other level from this.
I'm speaking at a regular voice level. About 2 feet away from my phone at a regular level. But I can definitely tell there's a delay coming through the speaker, but it's incredibly clear. Yelling is fun! That's all I have.
As I walk through the setup, I'm going to detail some other specifications and some other things you need to know about the Wyze Cam. So let's get going. So setup is incredibly easy. I'm going to hit the plus up at the top left, and then I'm going to choose add device. Now you can search for the device or you can hit cameras, and you do have to choose the Wyze Cam Pan V2. Now I've plugged this in and it did a little orientation, so it just kind of checks where it's sitting in terms of its base, and now I'm hitting next. The next thing I need to do is to hit this little setup button.
Ready to connect.
I think we all heard ready to connect, so I choose that and then I hit next. The next thing you're going to do is to choose the Wi-Fi network. You can choose the drop down to go and choose your own Wi-Fi network and then put in your password, but this is only Wi-Fi at 2.4 gigahertz. So you're going to hit next on that, and now you have to actually put this QR code in front of the camera.
QR code scanned. Please wait.
All right, now I've heard that. I'm gonna hit next on the device, and now it's making that connection. During Wi-Fi setup, if you do struggle, I want you to take some things off of your Wi-Fi network. Your router or your mesh Wi-Fi system might be having trouble connecting this. Also, make sure that as you do that piece, you are in a good part or a good area for Wi-Fi connectivity. You can always really easily tell that up here at the top. Make sure you're just checking that your Wi-Fi signal strength is really strong as you're close to this. You don't have to be exactly right on it as you measure that, but be very close. The other thing that you can do is just not have a bunch of things streaming at the time. That keeps your router very busy. So get that traffic a little bit lower, and this should make a good connection. That was very simple here. So I'm just naming my device. I'm calling it Pan Cam. You could pick any of the other names that they have here, or you can type in your own. So now you come to this spot where it's talking about something called Wyze Cam Plus. Now this is a subscription feature that allows you to get more enhanced or better features with your Wyze Cam V2. Now this is $2 a month per camera that you connect to this service. So it's important to think about this as an ongoing cost if you want the features that it gives you. Now, the first one is person detection, and person detection isn't perfect on these cameras, but it does mean that you can suddenly trigger Amazon's voice assistant routines, which means you can do a ton of other things with the rest of your smart home. The other side of this is complete motion capture, which really changes what this camera can record and for how long. The rules go like this: without complete motion capture, you will end up recording every 5 minutes from the same type of event. That means that if motion occurs multiple times within a 5-minute timeline, you would only record one event. But if it was motion and then sound, well, you would get 2 different recordings, but those recordings will only be 12 seconds. You can manage this either with Cam Plus or with that micro SD card. Either way, you'll get recordings that are as long as you need them to be, and you will get them as often as they need to be. And you can set up everything from continuous recording to just the event-based recording.
Hey, I saw someone.
The next thing to do is to share with your family and friends. Now, what you can do with the Wyze application is you can have multiple people logging into the application, but it doesn't work super well with two-factor authentication, which I do recommend you turn on in the app. We'll talk about that later. That makes sure that basically no one can get logged into your account. So what I recommend you do with Wyze products is you share the device, and what you're going to do is hit the plus, and then you're going to put in their email address. And if they don't have an account, they're going to get an email that says you got to go sign up for an account, and you probably just want to do this whole process on their phone for them at that point. Get them logged in. But this is how you share with family and friends, or people even outside of your home. So I've had the Wyze Cam Pan V2 now for a few days, and I want to give you my 5 favorite things with the device. The first thing is the ability to trigger Amazon's voice assistant routines with that person detection. Now, it does cost me in terms of having that Cam Plus subscription, but that is a nice trigger point to be able to cause other things to happen in my home that are outside of the Wyze system. I do like the integration with Amazon and Google, but their smart displays do have a pretty significant delay on them. I'm seeing 5 to 10 seconds on both systems. It really doesn't matter. Hello. Hello. That should be fixed in the future with a new format to their web videos coming. I expected it already to be here, so that's why I'm talking about it now. From a security perspective, I like it in the evening, and I like the night vision, especially in an indoor space. You get very quiet motor movement with this camera, and the night vision is very good. Obviously, this has to be indoor though, so that's why indoor at night is one of my favorite use cases. But for a lot lot of you, the security features are going to be a little bit dampened because the quality on the video is not amazing. And it's not that it's terrible or anything, but I think this is going to actually be better as a pet camera or something to check in on people at home or in other homes, because the speaker is very good, the two-way communication is very good, there's a little bit of a delay, but pets, you're going to actually see them moving throughout your home, and it tracks remarkably well with both that pan and tilt function. The one security feature I absolutely love is the mini siren. I think this is a great addition, and at 105 or 106 decibels that I measured, it's actually loud enough, I think, to scare someone away, and maybe for your neighbors to hear it if you have an open window or it's in a garage or a space like that. So I really love that additional feature. But you're going to have to be very careful with the settings that you use that with. You don't want that happening in the middle of the night or when you're at home, maybe taking a nap. So what I really like about the Wyze application at this point is the geolocation feature that you can use within your rules in order to set up turning this on or off as you come in and out of the home. You can use something like if this then that too, if you need it to go outside of some of those other systems. We have our Pan Cam set up, and I'm going to walk you through the settings and then the application, a couple of things in there. Now the Pan Cam itself, if you wanted to turn it off, you can actually tap on that. It's intended for privacy, but just keep in mind that it's not totally off at that point. If it was totally off, I couldn't turn it back on with that button. It's very close though, and it's what most people need. When you come in, you can see that it goes through a 3-step process of getting the camera feed up and running. If you're having trouble, one of the features that you can use is right here. So I just tapped up where it said HD, and you can actually drop down the quality of this camera. So if you're having trouble getting into settings or even just getting to the feed, maybe you want to drop all the way to 360p. That can happen with these. I'm going to leave mine in HD for the moment. Up top right, just under the gear icon, is the ability to move through night mode or night vision. So you can see I tapped it and now it says on up here at the top, and I can continue to cycle. So this would keep night vision off at all times. Most people are just going to want to leave this in auto, and I'll show you a setting in a moment that will help you to better customize that setting. You can turn on sound as you're in the app, so now the camera is listening and it will pipe through my smartphone speakers at this point. If you don't want that on when you come in, you can just turn it off. You can start a recording anytime you would like. Now, recordings, it's important to note how you are saving those recordings. This will be saved to an album and it will go to your phone. You can usually find that in its own folder or its own album when you go to your respective Photos app on your phone. I can also two-way communicate through my phone. So as I speak now, it's pushing it through the speaker there, and I will hear responses back. There is a delay. You can take a photo at any point, so you just hit that and you can see it was saved to the album as well. Now the more section is quite significant. Whenever you're looking at video going on, what you'll notice is that there's a little green bar that goes around the object or whatever is being followed throughout your space. So when you hit more, you can turn that off. Then you wouldn't know what's being followed, but it removes that block from your videos. Motion tracking actually means that the camera will follow users around the space. So if you don't want your Pan Cam to move on its own, you would turn off motion tracking. Now it will stay idle and your controls are here. There is another way that it can move around though. So inside of the more section is pan scan. Now when you use pan scan, what happens is it will just simply rotate through the different spots that it has been set. So now the camera, you can see it is rotating and it's going to go every 10 seconds to that next waypoint. You can set the waypoint inside of the settings up here, which I'll show you in just a minute. Here's a quick link to the album. Now, these are all the recordings that I have saved, both videos and photos, and I can edit and delete certain ones if I'd like, or I can share the ones that I've selected. One thing when you're in this, so I can tap on this, that allows me to zoom in. So it's a double tap to zoom in on any spot in my home. And then the other thing I can do is I can change to a landscape control mode. So this allows me to do a lot of the same things, but it's easier to see your feed now and to zoom in and pull out if you'd like. Inside of this interface, there's a lot of the same controls, so I can adjust between HD and SD and 360p if I'd like. Plus I can take a picture, start a recording, turn on the sound so I can hear the feed, and I can two-way communicate. The time-lapse feature is a lot of fun in the More menu here. So when you choose time-lapse, you will require a micro SD card inside of your camera at that point. What you can do is set a start time and then an end time, and you can actually set this over days if you'd like. So if you're 3D printing something and you'd like to have a look at that over a whole day, well, now I just created a recording that would go from 5 p.m. today till 8 p.m. tomorrow, and I can choose the intervals. This interval allows me to choose either by seconds, minutes, or even hours, so you can really customize how often you're taking a picture. Now, you'll take a picture at each spot in that interval once you hit the set button, and then it will save it to the micro SD card, and you'll be able to look at it in the album. Here's the other option to turn off the camera. You saw that I could control the camera, move it around here left and right, and you do get that 360 degrees. But the other thing you get is that 93-degree tilt function. So this allows you to move up and down in your space. Going into the larger settings screen, there's quite a bit here, and this is where you're going to find out how to really customize this camera. So I can adjust the name, I could tap in there, and that's really simple, so I'm not going to do that. But the detection settings are something that will really change how this camera performs. The first thing you need to know is that these influence event recording. So this is how it triggers the event recording settings. Now, those settings are over here in event recording, and you want to determine whether you want it to record an event based on detecting motion. You'll also want it maybe for sound, and there are the other Cam Plus features. So if you have a trial of that or you're going to continue to subscribe, you can have these other things. Keeping in mind, this is not an outdoor camera, so you probably won't be using package or vehicle detection, and I'm not even going to cover that, but I will use person detection. The schedule is also very important here, so you can turn that off and then just schedule this to record events within certain time periods. You can decide what you'd like to do there, but that really changes things. Now, the detection settings, going back to that screen, if you're finding you're picking up things like light changes, turn down your motion detection sensitivity. I have in the past found that I had to go quite low in order to eliminate certain things. If you go quite high, you're going to get a lot of notifications, a lot of things going on. It's the same thing with the sound detection. I find this one's a little better balanced, but it's basically if there's sound, it's going to start an event recording. So for most of you, I would either start at the 40 and 40 you get in the application when you first start, and then you might want to set a detection zone in order to eliminate certain things. So I've gone into detection zone, and I'm going to hit that little button, and what you do is you start to put in the blocks you'd like to detect motion. So actually, you know what? I probably don't want it around that door. What I probably want to do is to detect in these other spaces. And you can draw in any pattern you would like in order to detect motion or detect these different things. You can also undo the last action you had and clear the whole thing. Now that we have dealt with the events and our detection settings, we might want to deal with notifications because you are probably going to get a lot of those. So do you only want person detection or the events that you have chosen within Wyze AI or Cam Plus detection? Well, you choose that. If you don't want notifications for motion events, I get it, turn that off. You can also turn off all of the notifications for this camera by doing that, or just sound events as well. Alarm settings is a nice little extra feature that you get on the Wyze cams. So it can listen for smoke alarm sounds and CO alarm sounds. The other nice thing about this is it will do an alert video and send you a notification on this. In advanced settings are a number of other controls for us. So we have the ability to record to a micro SD card. I'm going to show you now how to set all of this up. All right, let's get our micro SD card installed here. Now, you can take just about any one. You can see mine's actually 64 gigabytes, so I'm outside of the specifications here as I do this. I did require a little bit of a screwdriver just to get it pushed in there. Be careful as you do that so you don't snap it. But now I've got it installed. The pins, just so you know, they were down into the base. So you heard that little sound, and now that we've heard that, we can actually go into the application inside of the advanced settings, and you can see that we have record to micro SD card automatically chosen. Now you can choose continuous or events only. If you choose events only, what's going to happen is entirely based on those detection settings and the event recording settings you've set is how you will record to the micro SD card. Events will still go to the cloud unless you turn off event recordings and just choose continuous to that micro SD card. If you'd like to manage the micro SD card further, you can format it here. And if you'd ever like to take it out, make sure you eject it the first time. One setting that is very useful is the view playback screen, and this gives you all of your recordings on different timelines. So you can actually scroll in here or zoom in. You saw me kind of pull out in order to zoom in, and then there's videos at certain times. You can move along the timeline too, back and left and right using this. I just put in this card so we don't have a bunch of recordings on here. And then you can, of course, play, or you can start recordings, take photos, and you can go back to view the live stream. You can also move along the timeline in this manner. So this really helps when you're trying to get to events that maybe occurred overnight. You can really zoom out and then you can pull over to that where that event should be. You can also adjust the evening or the day that you're looking at. The motor controls section really helps you to control how fast it's moving when you're using the application. When you're using motion tracking, it really just still moves at the speed it needs in order to track the person or whatever's moving through your space. So this doesn't affect that as much as it just affects when you're trying to control the panning. It also does affect tilt, and it does affect how it sounds. You can reset the position to get it back to center if you'd like, and then the pan scan settings allows you to set those 4 different waypoints that were set up in pan scan. So we can set our own waypoints now. We'll move the camera to the position and then hit set. So let's say that I want this to be my first position. Now I can have that selected, hit set, and then I've got to move to the next one here, or hit the plus if you don't have a second box. So let's say I wanted to move there. I hit set again. And now let's say I want to go there, I hit set again. But you see, because I didn't hit that plus, it just redid or went over that. So that's a little annoying piece for you guys. You got to hit that plus, then you've got this box selected, and then you want to hit set. Now, I've only set 3 waypoints. I can hit preview, and now it's going to go through. I'll see it, and it waits 10 seconds at each waypoint as it just moves through. Once I'm happy with it, I can hit save, and now it's set those positions. So you don't need 4 pan scan positions. You can actually just have a couple in order to have pan scan work correctly for you. Night vision mode, you saw before where I could go between the 3 different modes, but we have a night vision condition. So you can decide when you want night vision to come on. If it's just in low light, and I think that's what you want to do, then you can put it in dusk. And if you want it to be really, really low light, you can put it in dark. There's a setting here to turn off the IR lights. Now what you can do with this is if you're pointing the pan cam through the glass to view the outdoors, a lot of people do this and then they turn off those IR lights. Now obviously you're not going to be able to see anything outside unless you have some other plug-in IR lights sitting outdoors. So most of the time you want that turned on. One of the nice things about these IR lights is that they actually aren't really showing up like other cameras. You often see those IR lights. It's a really nice job that Wyze has done with this. Do you want to see the camera status light? You can turn that on or off. If you're hanging this upside down, you can rotate the image 180 degrees. If you want to see the timestamp for your videos, you can leave that on, or if you don't, you can turn that off. You can show the Wyze logo if you'd like on your videos, or you can turn that off, and whether or not you want to record sound. If you're finding that your time is off, you can hit that sync button and it will synchronize to cloud-based time. The rules I'll go through in a little bit here. It's a big segment. This is how you share with other people. So if you didn't do it during setup, that's okay. You can share with another user if you'd like. There's also device information. Now this is a good section for you to come in and check on because you can see your Wi-Fi signal strength. You can also see the IP address if you're naming devices inside. I use the Google Home application and Nest Wi-Fi, so it's great for me to be able to confirm that and then make sure I've named this appropriately. You can also see the firmware version and you can hit update at any time, but most of the time when you go into the camera, you're going to get this update come up. They'll just ask you to do an update. If you need support, you can tap on this to get to some of Wyze's support. You can also restart the camera or delete the device if you need to get rid of it ever and maybe redo things. Your events are down here at the very bottom. You'll see this little events segment and you can see that it is recording those different events. And you can see that it's named differently per type of event. So when it's been triggered by motion, this is what you get. When it's been triggered by sound, this is what you get. Now you can also filter entirely within this application. You can pick which different cameras you would like to have events from, so you can see which ones I'm actually getting results from. Plus you can go by the different days here if you'd like, and you can decide if you just want to see those person type of events or motion type of events. If you'd like to, you can actually edit and delete certain clips. So let's say I didn't want this clip to be stored. I can hit that edit button and then you saw me select it and delete it. There's also the full filter up here, so you could select multiple cameras if you'd like. Then you can select multiple types of detections and you can do that. And now I've got that filtering going on. When you go into an event, you have the ability to do a lot with this. So this was me just turning the camera around, doing some of the demonstrations, and you can see that I can speed up the playback here. So if you have a very long clip that you've recorded, well, I can go up to 4 times the speed. Now I can also see the time code. I can move through the event if I'd like. And down here at the bottom, if you want, you can share this video. This is them trying to get better at people detection and other types of detections. I can also listen to the sound in the video if I'd like. And there are a couple of other playback options if I have a micro SD card. I can delete the event, and if I'd like, I can tap up here on the screen, and when I tap on it, I can share this clip if I'd like, and this allows you to share it in a number of ways or whatever's available on your phone. So what happened there is it downloaded all from the cloud, created a copy here, and now I can share it wherever I'd like. Most of the time you're gonna just want to download the video though, and there's a little button here. Now it was saved to my gallery on my phone, so you'll have to go find that. The other thing I can do is I can hit that little button up in the top right of the video, and now I can control it in a landscape sort of format. There are a few other things we want to do in the application, and this really enables a lot of power with the Pan Cam. So I can add a rule or I can add a device group, and the device groups are really useful because they put a number of your cameras together. They kind of combine them. So we could just call this a camera group, and then it makes it a little bit easier to see all of your cameras at the same time and to turn them on and off. Of course, you can still get into the settings for each of these if you need to individually, but it brings them up in a little bit of an easier way to manage or to see a number of them at the same time. Once you've created a group like this, you can actually use them inside of the rules. So let's go through the rules segment now. There are a lot of reasons to create rules with your different devices inside of the application. There are 4 different types of rules that you can create. So we have the ability to create a basic shortcut, like turning on a whole set of cameras. We have the ability to automate based on a schedule. We have device triggers, so when motion is detected or things like that, and the location triggers. So I'm going to go into shortcut first, and this is just a very basic function here. This is just something that will show up at the top of the application. So let's say when I come in the door, I want everything to turn on, and I hit the plus on the add action there, and now what I can do is I can do things like unmute my notifications. Plus, I could turn on each camera individually. So if I wanted to turn on my Pan Cam, I can select that. But the other thing I can do is if I've made a camera group, I can also select that entire group. So obviously I don't need both of those, and I would only choose one. So I can delete the different actions. But this is turning on everything, so maybe I want to turn on a couple of lights as well. So you can see how making this, where you hit on everything, which is now up at the top of my application, would be very useful to turn on a number of things and to turn them off. So you can see I have other actions or other shortcuts that I have created, and I can modify those and reorganize them into whatever order I'd like. So I just had to long hold press there, and this allows me to move things around the application. I can also go back into those. I can delete the rule. I can organize the order more if I'd like as well. And I can add additional actions or delete actions as I see fit. The other things that I can do with the Pan Cam are pretty substantial. So I can trigger an upload to the cloud for this camera. So let's say you had another camera in the space and it saw someone, well, then you can upload a short video to the cloud. That's your 12-second recording at that point. Turning on motion detection and turning that off is another way to manage your notifications. So this is a really powerful way at any time to maybe stop getting notifications in the middle of the evening. You can turn those features off. You can restart the camera on a regular basis if this helps you for any reason. Maybe you're having some troubles with it. You can also turn on and off the notifications with this on a regular basis. You can reset the position, so bring it back to that center position. And here is where you can turn on the siren or turn off the siren if you'd like. Those actions are exactly the same within a scheduled action here, or a scheduled rule. You have exactly the same set of actions, but the difference is that number one, you can name it and you can do the start and the end time, plus you can pick the days that you would like. What this will do is turn off motion detection at the end of that. So this is a scheduled rule that you could use to turn on those features if you'd like. Device triggers allow us to do some really different things with the Wyze Cam Pan. So this you can choose as a device trigger. So if it detects motion, sound, any of those smoke alarms, or detects a person, well, I can then trigger other actions with other Wyze products. And in some cases, you might want to turn on lighting, you might want to lock or unlock the door. These are all options for you at that point. The other thing that you get is within a certain set of time or within certain days. So you can really adjust these types of trigger events or trigger rules. This location trigger, it doesn't always work perfectly for me, but I've had it actually be pretty reliable, even up here in Canada. It's not something that I would bet my entire home security on though, and that is the case with most geolocation features in most apps anyway. So I can set a location, and this even works up here in Canada. I can determine the feet or the distance here. So if I don't want it to be quite as wide of an area, I can actually adjust it using the little green icon here, and then I can move around as well. When I'm happy, I can hit save, and then it's going to use the location. And now when I enter or exit that area, I can set those actions, and I can also make it time-based again. The other thing that you'll want to manage is inside of the services tab. So you can see my free trial of Cam Plus. If I had home monitoring or another service from Wyze, I could go into that. This page also is the way that you can go and subscribe. So it's $20 a year. These are US prices, or $2 a month. And this is per camera. Security is very important with these cameras, and I am always going to recommend that you turn on two-step verification. Now, an authenticator app I think is the better way to go about that, but you can also do it by SMS. If you don't have an authenticator app or you don't want to dig into that, you can do it that way. So SMS just means you put in your phone number, and you will need that phone number in order to log into the account. The notifications section can kind of override everything here. So push notifications, if you turn this section or this setting off, then you will not get push notifications from the app whatsoever. You can go in, and this is where the Pan Cam settings were, but if you turn off either this one or this one, then you're not getting any notifications from the Pan Cam. This makes sure that the Pan Cam turns on notices. This makes sure that the entire application can send you push notifications. Smart Integrations really just says Amazon's voice assistant at this point, but I'm going to show you now how you can connect to a couple of other services. With the Google Home application, really all you're going to be able to do is add your Wyze Cam and then see it on smart displays. So I hit the plus up in the top left. Now I'm going to set up device, and we will choose the works with Google. Then you're going to have to search for Wyze, and that's really the easiest way to do this. And you can go ahead, and when you tap on that, it'll ask you to put in the credentials to your Wyze account. Once you've done that, what you'll have is at the bottom of your Google Home application, in a section that's called Link to You, what you'll find is your Pan Cam. It should have this kind of an icon, and you can go into it, then you can add it to a home, which allows you to add it to a room as well. Once you've added it to the room, that's more or less all you can do, other than maybe rename the camera to something different inside of the Google Home application, and then you can ask to stream it on a smart display or on your Chromecast. Show me Pan Cam.
All right, streaming Pan Cam on gym display.
Hello.
All right, streaming Pan Cam on gym display.
Hello?
Connecting to Amazon's voice assistant is very easy with a Wyze Cam. You basically hit that plus on the devices page, and now you can type in Wyze. And once you've done that, you can choose Wyze Camera. Then it will tell you, once you get to the screen, you're just going to have to hit Discover Devices. But you might have to, again, log in using your Wyze credentials. and that will connect it to Amazon's voice assistant. Once you have gotten everything from the Wyze application added, you can go into your camera section in that devices page and you will find your Pan Cam. There's a couple of things we can do. So person detection announcements, you can turn those on and you can choose the devices that it announces that person detection on. So you can uncheck any of the ones you don't want announcements to come through on. Plus, you can change the name and you can disable this and delete the whole device if you'd like. The other big thing is what I showed you in routines. You can use this whenever a person is detected, which does require Cam Plus, to trigger other actions with your Wyze Pan Cam. There are no actions that you can take with the Pan Cam, so you can't turn it on or off using Amazon's voice assistant. You would actually have to go to if this then that for something like that. Thank you to those of you that are still here. Of course, if you want, leave comments down below. I answer questions all the time. But if you're still here, you're a pretty in-depth person or you're really in deep with Wyze products. And I have a playlist that's up on the screen right now that will help you to configure and customize these devices to get so much more out of them than I was able to show you in our video here today. So go check that out. Otherwise, thanks for watching. And of course, don't hate, automate.